In 2020, Reader's Digest named Buchanan, Michigan the nicest place in America. Considering that Reader's Digest is the largest paid circulation magazine in the world, reaching 40 million people in 70 countries, that's quite a compliment. When you experience the charm of this small town, whose motto is "Life is better here," it's easy to see why. However, when I visited Buchanan for the very first time, I wasn't there for the small town charm. I was there to see a secular monument, an endorsement of free thinking and humanism. When I entered Oak Ridge Cemetery, I had no idea where I was going, but I knew what the monument looked like, so I found it within minutes. As I approached, I noticed two fawns grazing peacefully in the shade. At first, they seemed startled by my presence, but I didn't make any noise or sudden movements, and once they realized that I meant them no harm, they continued to graze while I walked closer to the monument. The monument was erected in 1872 by Joseph Coveney, an Irish immigrant who was inspired by Thomas Paine and Robert G. Ingersoll. One side of the monument reads "Free Thought." One side reads "Free Speech." One reads "Free Press," and another reads "Free Religion." The monument also has some of his sentiments engraved upon it, such as "More priests, more poverty. More religion, more lying." All Christian denominations preach damnation to the others. Even in 21st century America, such a monument would raise eyebrows, so one can only imagine what it was like to see something like that in the 19th century. According to local history, the townspeople were at first excited about the monument, which cost Covney $3,000, around $70,000 in today's money. However, when they found out what the monument said on it, they weren't too happy about it. In fact, the monument was smeared with red chalk, spat upon, and defaced. Despite his views on religion, most of the townspeople had a positive opinion of Covney. Joseph Coveney was born on March 29, 1805, in County Cork, Ireland. At the age of 20, he left for America on a ship called the William, and he arrived in New York on May 26, 1826. Initially, Covney was a weaver, but he took up carpentry, and that was his trade for over a decade. In 1837, he married a woman named Louisa Rowe, and in the spring of that year, they settled on 40 acres in Buchanan, Michigan. Over time, he built a successful farm that sat on 600 acres. Wheat was the principal product of his farm, and he was by all accounts a shrewd businessman, a respected citizen, and a generous neighbor. In 1849, Covney went out west during the California gold rush to try his luck, and even though he was only there for a year, he made a profit. Despite his continued success, he remained friendly and generous. There was a situation in Buchanan that involved a rural school teacher whose salary had not been paid, and so Joseph Coveney stepped in and paid the other half out of his own pocket. Not only did Covney pay the remainder of his salary, but he also gave him room and board. Still, the people of Buchanan had a hard time reconciling his kindness and generosity with his atheism. Like many people in America today, the townspeople didn't understand how Covney could be good without God. More than likely, they probably didn't understand the religious oppression in Ireland, which very well may have impacted Covney's views on religion. When Pope Clement VII refused to grant Henry VIII an annulment of his marriage, Henry sought to become the head of the church in England, and in 1534, English Parliament passed the Acts of Supremacy, giving him power over the church in England and taking the Pope out of the equation. Irish Parliament passed the Crown of Ireland Act of 1542, making Henry the King of Ireland, and they also made him the head of the church in Ireland. Although Henry had broken away from papal authority, most of his Irish subjects were not Protestants. They were Catholics who remained loyal to Rome. Despite this fact, Catholics and other religious groups were required to pay tithes to the Protestant church. The tithing was not entirely abolished until the Irish Church Act of 1869, only a few years before Joseph Coveney erected his secular monument in Buchanan. There were also other anti-Catholic laws that prohibited Irish citizens from owning land, holding public office, or practicing medicine, just to name a few. These penal laws, as they're called, were finally nullified with the Catholic Relief Act of 1829, only 3 years after Covney had left for America. Even though Covney spent most of his life in the United States, he likely would have been knowledgeable about the things going on in his home country, and it's hard to imagine that these things didn't in some way shape his views on religion. When viewed in the context of Ireland's history of religious oppression, it's not surprising that Covney would say things like "more priests, more poverty," or "more religion, more lies." Covney is described as someone who is not afraid to debate or express his views on religion at any time. He's what we would call a firebrand atheist. At the local library, I found a book that detailed an encounter between Joseph Coveney and a man named Albert A. Worthington, a Sunday school teacher and the son of a minister. One day, Worthington was coming down the road in a horse-drawn buggy while Joseph Coveney was working on some road repairs and installing a new culvert. He told Worthington that he'd be happy to finish installing the culvert if he'd step down from the buggy and discuss religion with him for half an hour. Worthington refused and instead decided to take a 4-mile detour. This story tells us that Joseph Coveney could be rather persistent with his anti-religious sentiment, and it's possible that he didn't get on very well with Albert Worthington. In another biographical sketch of Joseph Coveney that I found in a history of Berrien and Van Buren counties, I read that a minister's son poured tobacco juice on Joseph Coveney's monument while Coveney was still alive. Given that Albert Worthington was the son of a minister and had an unpleasant run-in with Joseph Coveney, it's possible that Albert Worthington is the tobacco juice culprit. Worthington was born in my hometown of Battle Creek on May 1st, 1857, and died in Buchanan, Michigan on May 30th, 1941. The timeline certainly matches up. But regardless of the vandalism and the ravages of time, Coveney's monument still stands as a testament to 19th century free thought, and I'm proud that it's here in Southwest Michigan, my little corner of the world.